Today for this second demonstration, I am going to show you how to properly block format a letter. What I've done is I have a pre-typed up letter here on letterhead, and I am going to then go ahead and put it into block format for you because that's the quickest way to do it. You can choose to either watch this video first or read the selection about this first. Either way works. But I do think that it would benefit you to do both because I'm not going to explain everything in either place. So this letter is a cover letter for a project that you will actually be doing later in the term. And of course the very first thing that is typed is the date. And one of the things that I do need to talk about with this project is the fact that spacing in Word has been really messed up since 2007 was released. When you press enter once in the default format on Word, it actually puts in 2 lines. So it'll put in an extra blank line for me. If I'm not aware of this, I can actually end up with a lot of extra space in my letter, and that's something that we want to avoid. So please, please don't do that. With that extra spacing turned on, which can be turned off if you go into your paragraph tools under your right-click menu. You can remove the spacing after paragraphs and remove the multiple line spacing, and that'll take care of it. With that turned off, I would have to press enter twice to get the same effect. So in between your date line and your salutation, you should press enter twice or 4 times depending on which setting you're actually using. But in any case, no matter what, it needs to end up looking like this. In between paragraphs, note that there is no indentation on the paragraphs, and there is a full blank line, but no more space between the paragraphs themselves. That is also very important, and you should make sure that you are indeed set up that way. At the bottom, there needs to be the same amount of space between the last paragraph and the start of the complementary close as there is between the paragraphs themselves. However, you need extra space between that and your name for your signature to fit. Now this happens to be one of my pet peeves. Your title, should you actually have one, is going to be should be right under your name, and a lot of times they aren't. And the reason, of course, is this new spacing format in Word. So I have a couple options. One, of course, is that I can turn that spacing off, and then it works. Of course, many people like to leave it on, and so there is a sort of lazier way of doing this, and that is that instead of pressing enter, I hold down my shift key and then press enter, and it enters what's called a non-breaking line space, but really that just means it moves down 1 line. Now when you're all the way done with your block letter, you should also vertically center it. And vertically centering means that there's equal white space in the top and the bottom of the page. And although there are ways to do this automatically in Word, we are not going to use them because we have a digital letterhead up on the top. And with that, it would also be centered, and that's not appropriate. So in order to vertically center this, you're going to go into View, and we want to change our zoom so that we can view the entire document at once, the whole page. So we choose that option, and on Windows I believe it's 1 page. And now we can see that there's actually more space at the bottom than there is at the top. And so I just want to move it down a line or 2, and I may even use some more of those non-breaking line spaces to do so, until there's approximately the right amount of space at the top and bottom, and eyeballing it is fine. You don't have to specifically make sure that it's perfect. As long as you make an effort, it's probably going to be close enough. This needs to be done to all of your letters, no questions asked. It was one of the most simple things you can do to actually make your letter look as professional as possible. Now before I sign off, there is one last little detail that I want to show you, and that is how to do the modified block letter format that we talk about in this module. A modified block letter format is actually pretty simple, but it sounds difficult. I'm going to go back into 100%, and it sounds difficult because you have to put in a tab in order to move over the date line and the complementary closing. And most people today don't know how to put in tabs anymore because our software does so many things for us. First thing you have to make sure is that your ruler is turned on. And if mine was turned off, there would be a little icon over here that would allow me to turn it back on. I always leave my ruler on. I like to know where on the page I am. What I'll do with my cursor on the same line as October 26th, which is when this was written, is I just click the 3-inch line once, because although we're moving things to the 3-inch line, we are not centering them there. Alternately, there's some styles of modified block that ask for them to be right aligned on the right side of the screen, but they're far rarer. And so we're going to also make sure that we do this for each of the lines down here. And once that tab is put in, all I have to do is press tab to move everything else over. And of course, sometimes the non-breaking line space does not play neatly with this, but other than that, everything else should work just fine. And that moves those items over. It has been my experience that this looks the nicest with a letterhead that stretches all the way across the page, and since this one really doesn't, it has a line that does, but mostly everything's on the left side. I like to keep everything on the left side for those. The spacing and the vertical centering of your letters is going to be part of the grading of every one of them. You are allowed to make mistakes on this very first one, but after that, you are not going to be able to redo it for those specific mistakes. Remember, if you have any questions,